everybody. Thanks for joining on this podcast as well. I was introduced to this back in 2019, actually. I was Peter and Sally's guinea pig. So I've been on this for until now. I'm still on it, actually.
And what was your life like prior to? So you were a guinea pig, but what did that mean? What were you experiencing beforehand?
So the journey is basically ironically about a month before I learned about this patch when Sally and Peter talked about it. I was actually diagnosed with a disease called glaucoma. So I'm not sure if anybody in the audience understand what glaucoma is. Glaucoma is basically pressure in your eye, and if you get this type of pressure where it's over a certain percentage or a certain PSI in your eye, you can actually go blind because it'll pop a nerve. And when you pop that nerve, you will go blind. So I was just diagnosed with that. And at that moment in time when I was diagnosed, I was roughly about a 22 to a 23 PSI, which is not a normal human being. A normal human being should only be about between 8 and 10 or maybe 12 max.
Wow. So you had symptoms of glaucoma with a diagnosis, and then you were asked to be a guinea pig. And so as you began your journey of being a guinea pig, what did you begin to notice with using the patches?
Well, my story is a little different only because when I was given this patch or handed and say, just try it, I didn't make of anything. So I continue my prognosis with my specialist, which is my doctor who today still manages my eyes because I do go on a quarterly basis. So to be honest, very, very candid about it, I didn't realize or didn't notice anything with the patches, to be honest. I used it for almost a year and a half. So I was on what we call these drops that looks kind of like a Visine, but only half of a bottle. And it costs a tremendous amount of money. Each bottle is almost like $500 that you can drop in your eyes for literally maybe 30 days. And then you got to run out and you got to go and refill it. So I was on that for almost a year and a half using that. And it did work. But however, it didn't work to the extent that I would like for it to become a normal human being. So when I was using this for a year and a half, I was also on a trial clinical with my specialist using these drops that he kept on prescribing me to see if it's going to work. So it did drop from about 23 down to about 19, 18, but that was the max. So although I'm using these drops consistently every single night, I was using the patch as well. So Sally told me, babe, you need to patch yourself every single day and keep on using, but it didn't register in my mind. So I kept on living my normal day. But I'm a person that when you hand me something or like a regimen, I stay within that regimen. So I stay within that regimen. So finally, after about a year and a half to 2 years of using the patch, and all of a sudden I do see a drastic change where the drops was only giving me about an 18 to 19 pressure, where all of a sudden, actually, when it finally triggered, my body really finally triggered it. It was that very next moment where I went to my doctor, my specialist, and he says, okay, now this is weird. He goes, the few drops that I've given you has only been around 18, 19, but all of a sudden now you're down to 15 and 14. What happened?
And this is how long? A year and a half, you say?
Yeah, this is a year and a half into it. Okay. So I already wore the patch for about a year and a half at that point.
And this is the X39.
This was just X39 only at that time.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So didn't register still. I didn't talk about the X39. I'm just like, oh, I don't know, maybe this new drip, this new drops are working. So 6 more months into it. So my next 2 visits, it actually dropped again from 15 down to 12. And he goes, I don't think the drops can do this, because he also has many other clients and many other patients that they're not dropping drastically. So he goes, you must be changing your diet, or you must be doing something different. So only at that moment that it clicked. And then I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm wearing these things right here, right on my C7. And then that's when he's like, well, what the hell is that? It's called a stem cell patch. And he's like, wow. So I go, yeah, I've been wearing this thing. Maybe that's what's working then.
So you explained to him that you were activating your stem cells, that he knew that a stem cell patch wasn't, it actually, stem cell patch would imply that there were stem cells in it, but we know it doesn't have that in it. So what did he do?
So I mean, obviously he was very interested. He started asking me, hey, what is this about? I want to know more about it. So of course I sent him the link as well too. Not necessarily thinking about, you know, recruiting or anything. I was just trying to get myself better personally. Right. So, long story short, there is he investigated it and he goes, wow, this is actually, you know, pretty good stuff. He became interested. And so I told him, well, should I stay on this regimen? He goes, yeah, your eyes are dropping. So about 6 months more into this, so 2.5 years into it, he goes, maybe we should try something different now. He goes, why don't you just do the drop every other night, stay on those patches and see what happens.
Now you said 2.5 years now? You're in
now it's 2.5 years into it.
Okay.
So 2.5 years into it, I did every other night now with a drop. I backed off on it basically. And sure enough, I went down to 10 on my right and 11 on my other.
That is amazing. Oh my goodness.
and so not only did I, you know, was able to cut costs almost half, right? Because I still have to be on these drops, but not as much as I needed to, number one. But number two, obviously this, you know, the patches have been working, to say the least. And then just recently, which is about my last checkup, I'm still at 10. And now he says, why don't you just drop twice a week instead? I go, okay, I'll take it down to twice a week. So now I'm on a different regimen where I'm trying to actually wean off of these drops.
That is amazing. My goodness, your doctor must be totally just not even understanding what's happening to his personal technology that he grew up with. That is quite something. So let me ask you, in your journey, have you noticed anything else about your life besides your eyes that has shifted or anything over? You've been on them how long now? Is it 3 years? 4 years. 4 years activating your own stem cells. And what's your age?
I am 50 years old.
Okay, so you started, okay. So tell us, is there anything else you've seen that shifted? You might have been so subtle you didn't even realize it since you weren't paying attention, but now what's it like?
Well, you know, the other thing that I didn't realize too at that time was I was going bald. You know, my son at the time was what, like 16 years old. He's like 6 feet tall and I'm only about 5'6". He looks at my head and he goes, Dad, I can see a bald spot. And I go, really? You can see this too, right? So sure enough, now when he looks at me, he goes, Dad, your hair is growing back. I go, I know.
Wow. Hair is growing back, and you are convinced that one day you won't need what perhaps the medical physicians think you need to have, and basically your body is repairing and restoring and regenerating and rebuilding like you never thought it could happen.
Correct. So I think to the audience, you know, we all register differently. Our body does react differently, and our body takes it in, you know, differently. And so if you're on this, whether it's just 1 week or like Sharon within 6 weeks and getting, you know, results, it's really, you got to be patient with your body because your body is really registering and trying to figure out where it's going to go, what it's going to do, and how it's going to fix itself, because your body is so badly damaged when you were already 18 and partying until you're 50-year-old like me, and then now you're trying to reverse everything. It doesn't work overnight. It just doesn't. That's so true. You got to be very, very, very patient with this thing, but it definitely works. And I would debate with it every day with anybody.